All right, venturecapital.fm. This is the Venture Capital Podcast where we talk about the most interesting things in VC, the things that you need to know if you want to be a VC, or the things you need to know as a founder.
So much excitement.
So much excitement. Let's ramp it up. Okay, so nfx.com, our buddies there published an article called Real Estate 3.0. The ownership revolution. They talk about it in real estate tech. There's three things that have happened. There is 1.0, which was the information revolution. I think that was just making data available online. I think when I was in high school, my first startup idea was I should just go buy domain names and resell them. Little did I know like what that would actually become. My second idea was I should create a website online where people can buy and sell houses. Didn't do that. And I would say that's probably what they would say is the information revolution.
No, so they're saying, okay. So this concept of like revolution is that there are barriers. And as those barriers get knocked down, it opens up these new kind of revolutionary opportunities, right?
Okay.
So the first one is just data. So it used to be that the realtors really controlled all of the data.
Okay.
And because they controlled all the data, like if you wanted to buy a house, you had to go to a realtor just to know what was available in the market.
Right. But then the internet changed that.
Right. So the internet changed that.
I feel like you're making me look like a dummy.
No, I'm not trying to make you look like a dummy. I'm just saying that it wasn't about buying and selling yet. It was
information.
It was simply about what was available.
Yes. Let's post it online would be the simplest example of that.
Right.
Information versus you had these like, I mean, even still today, you've got these like real estate, I forget what they're technically called. What are they? You know what I'm thinking of? Like the Utah Real Estate Coalition.
Oh, okay.
And like they all have their own MLSs. Each region has their own like MLS protected. And even the term realtor is a trademark term. Like I don't even know if we can say this on the podcast because we don't monetize. We probably can.
But
it's a
trademark
term.
realtor.
If you're trying to sell houses and you're not part of the MLS, you can't say realtor.
Yeah.
So, all right. Keep going. Real estate. It's okay.
Agent. We'll real estate agent.
You can't say you can't say real estate agent.
Why not?
Oh, you could say real estate.
You could say real estate agent.
Yes.
Real estate agent is
if
not
you're part
trademarked.
of the MLS.
Anyways, point being that phase one, it was just democratizing access to information that wasn't available before. So it was like reducing that barrier. Phase two was like, okay, now that we've like reduced this barrier of access to information, right? Now everybody kind of knows what properties are for sale at any given time and like, you know, what prices are going for and how things are being valued and like all the information related to real estate. Then the next thing is what you said, which is making it easier to buy and sell, right?
Okay.
So platforms that enable that. So you look at companies like Open Door and Homey here locally and
Red Door.
And
Was it Red Door or Redfin?
Sorry, Redfin.
Okay.
They just make it, they reduce the barriers and make it a little bit easier to buy and sell real estate. And then phase three is saying, okay, now what we're going to say is like, yeah, these other things made it easier to buy and sell. Like they just like they greased the skids, but it was still really hard because these are big assets, right? They're really expensive. It's still a complicated transaction. How can we make all of that
But the big part
even
of it is
easier and better
new ownership models
through new ownership?
This is like Web3.
It could be through Web3, but it doesn't have to be. No.
It's like Web3, but for houses. I was making an analogy. I'm not saying this is Web3.
The reason that
they made made the same thing in their argument. If Web3 generally communicated as products and services that turn internet users into owners, then this is real estate 3.0.
That oftentimes, could use Web3 to facilitate that ownership.
Right, but it's all about ownership.
Right. It is all about ownership and democratizing access to ownership. So first was like democratizing access to information. The next is like democratizing well, maybe not democratizing, but just making it easier to buy, sell. And then the last is democratizing access to ownership across the board.
And adding Web3 technologies like blockchain, crypto, smart contracts. I really like the idea of smart contracts.
Yeah, it's cool in theory.
In theory. I feel like the best example of smart contracts is when it comes to art. I know I'm digressing.
Yeah.
But you could say every time something is printed, a percentage goes back to the owner. And so you can still transfer or the creator, right? You can build these custom rules in it, or a certain percentage is donated to a foundation.
Yeah. So the big thing with smart contracts in real estate is that it could get rid of title, right? Because the reason why you hire title is they come in and they do all the research to verify that that piece of land you are buying is actually your piece of, like, that the seller has the right to sell you that piece of land unencumbered.
And no other claims are on it.
And there are no other claims. And it costs a decent amount of money for them to go do all that research verification. They put their stamp of approval on it, and they take out insurance and all these other things. But if you had a smart contract, it would just have all of that data built into the contract. And so you'd be able to verify it independently through the blockchain. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of interesting. But anyways, going back to this idea of ownership, because that's what we want to talk about today.
And I think the smart contracts is, I think you can change it so that more people can buy a house, they can enter and exit at their own will, and then they can go for a variety of things. You can build smart contracts around renting to own, multifamily, vacation homes.
Yeah.
You own vacation homes.
Yeah.
You, in theory, could build a smart contract, contribute your assets there, and then you can be more liquid with it.
Yeah, but you also don't necessarily need a smart contract for any of those other things too. What I think is super interesting are all of these things that really democratize access to home ownership by leveraging technology to do that. So there's a company called here.co where you can go and you can invest. This is not investment advice, but you can go and you can buy for $100 a fractional share of a short-term rental property. And they will cut you a check every year or every quarter, whatever it is, for like your sliver of the rental income and profits from that $100 investment that you made. And when they sell the property, you get your $100 back plus whatever appreciation gain or minus any loss, right? That's distributable to it. So, what I think is interesting about that is that there are all these people that have watched these YouTube and TikTok videos where, they go around and there's some guy living in a mansion or, some woman driving an exotic car and they're like, hey, how did you make your money? And they're like, most of the time they're like, it's real estate. Like I made real estate investments and that's how I made up so much money and lived the lifestyle I have today. And so many people see that. But then they look at like housing prices and they're like, wow, that's just like way out of range for me. And what's interesting about this third wave is that it's opening it up, it's democratizing it, it's saying like, hey, even if you have $100, you can invest in real estate. And you can invest not just in real estate, but you can invest in commercial real estate and short-term rentals and long-term rentals and.
Okay. So the first part where they said the big opportunity is in the evolution of rent to own.
Yeah.
And that real estate 3.0 makes this much easier.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think they're right. Well, I don't know if it's the biggest opportunity because essentially rent to own has been around for a long time. Rent to own, I guess it just makes it easier because you're able to use technology to facilitate it.
Yeah. So they're saying it makes it more cost effective for agents to acquire customers.
Yeah.
They're saying that it's easier to underwrite and understand the model of like what someone's getting. Capital markets know better how to deal with these.
Yeah. I mean, that may be true at the margin, but I don't know. I think rent to own's been around for a long time. I think the big difference though is that as property values have climbed because there is more interest in real estate across the board than there ever has been before. And people have the ability because part of it is access to capital, but part of it is just these other barriers that have been knocked down over time, right? So as these barriers drop, more and more people are interested in investing in real estate, can invest in real estate from just like a pure access perspective, but then they don't have the money in order to participate. And I think that's where this idea of ownership and kind of this third wave is like, hey, how can we democratize access? So one of the ways that you democratize access is you say, hey, look, maybe you don't qualify for the loan that would allow you to buy this house, but you do qualify to pay the rent. So why don't you pay the rent and we're going to give you credit as you pay that rent as though it were a loan. So we're just kind of repackaging these loan products into different mechanisms, different contracts that are more accessible for the user. And we're using technology to make it cost effective.
And someone else is still co-signing in a sense. Someone else still holds the loan.
Yeah, right. The owner of the property owns it, right? And if they stop paying the rent, you boot them out, right?
I think
Just like a bank would repossess, but it's actually ends up being a lot more efficient.
The other thing I think is beneficial is they bring up the point, it's rapid liquidity opportunities versus being stuck in something and waiting for the collective to sell.
Yeah.
You can buy or sell your shares at any time through smart contracts when you want.
Yeah. And there's also like opening up opportunity where it's like, hey, what if I live in San Francisco and I have a good job, but I can't afford to drop $3 million on a condo, right? But there are sites that would allow me to go and buy a $200,000 house that I could totally afford in Houston, generate rental income off of that, and help offset my rent in San Francisco, right? And enjoy a lot of the same benefits of home ownership around appreciation and so on and so forth from an investment perspective. Or it could also be the opportunity where it's like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and I'm going to buy a piece of your house. So instead of taking out a home equity loan, it's like, no, we're going to basically sell equity in my house to somebody else, right? They're going to write me a check for $100,000. Now they own a chunk of, maybe 50% or 30% or whatever it is, the value of my house, or a 0.25% of the appreciation gains when I sell it. So if they buy it, they put in $100,000 today, my house is worth $400,000, and then I sell my house for $800,000 10 years later, they're going to get $200,000 back. So they're able to participate in that appreciation game. So, and that's being enabled really for the first time by technology, by this like merge of like technology plus access of information, plus like interest of people in doing those types of transactions on both sides of the market.
Have you looked at investing in anyone in this space so far?
Can
you talk about that?
Not specifics, but I do think like there are just, I don't know. My personal thesis is that as information becomes more broadly available, people are going to start demanding access to different asset classes. One of those asset classes is real estate. You're seeing this play out in real time in places like hedge funds and real estate and venture capital and pre-IPO shares and all these other things, right? And as people learn about like these opportunities that historically have only been available to the rich because of this, like these information barriers, these barriers come down, people learn about it, and then they want access, and then they fight to change regulations and pass laws and build technology to get access to that. And so for real estate, again, some of those examples I mentioned are examples of companies that are doing those types of things where it's like, hey, yeah, you want to invest in real estate, it's not just go buy a single family house. You don't have to just go buy like a strip mall down the street, right? There are these numerous opportunities. Like you want to buy a vacation home, don't buy the whole vacation home that's just going to sit empty most of the year, buy an eighth of it, right? Do it through like a Picasso or, one of these other players. Or, buy that home in Texas, or buy that sliver of the home, the luxury rental, right? Short-term rental. And then or buy a piece of somebody else's home, right? Or provide some sort of home equity loan or financing option, right? I mean, there's just like so many different things that are popping up and being made available to your average consumer.
Do you think this market is underdeveloped from if I'm a founder looking to jump in after an idea?
I feel like it's it depends on what you want to do, right? I think there are some areas where it's maybe just a little bit late, because there are so many that have launched in the last couple of years. But look, there's always opportunities for fast followers to come in, see what the first movers have done well, leverage kind of the market that the first movers have built, and kind of market awareness and adoption, and chase after that. So, have you leveraged a smart contract for any of your properties? I have not. Why not? I think the biggest reason is because they're just not recognized from a legal standpoint. When will that happen? I don't know. It's a good question. I think it'll happen when society in general demands it to happen. And when will that be? No idea. I don't know. Probably somewhere in the 3 to 5 year range. Okay. I think we're a ways out because you need to get, I'd probably say 10 to 20 because we've got government and municipalities that are controlling a lot of it. Yeah. They just don't move as fast as we'd want them to. Yeah, that's true. I mean, they don't have a lot of incentive to. So, but I didn't know this, but there are a handful of states now that will allow you to have a fully digital driver's license, like on your phone. So it's happening. I was wondering that the other day. We were at the DMV this past week. Yeah.
I'm like, why do I have to carry a driver's license? Why can't it just be on my phone?
Yeah. Yeah. But what happens when your phone battery dies?
It doesn't, because
You're in
I
a
have
tough spot.
I've got phone anxiety. When was the last time I needed my driver's license anyways?
That's true. Well, with the way you drive.
Oh, you saw me tonight probably. I beat you by 10 minutes.
Probably.
I thought you'd be faster. Well, cool. Well, any other things we should address for the real estate 3.0 phase, which is separate from Web3, but has some
elements
similarities
of Web3 in it. Actually, so add this back in right before the end. So one of the things that I do think is interesting about this movement is that as you have access to real estate investing generally, you'll have more capital flow in to that asset class, which is partly what's driving up the prices on real estate, which is then in turn making it harder for people to get access to that opportunity. And what's interesting about the kind of this third wave is that what I think you're going to see is that generally asset prices will rise, but they'll rise in correlation to the access that they end up creating for more people. So if all of a sudden I don't have to drop $1 million to buy that short-term rental, I can just put in and get access to some of that return. I can just put up a few $1,000s. All of a sudden that becomes like a lot more interesting, and I can diversify across a whole bunch of different real estate pieces of, instead of just like sinking all my money into one. And so overall, I think like it'll probably like push prices up, while simultaneously kind of like creating it a little bit of a commodity environment where like rents paid to real estate will probably be driven down. Mm-hmm. But overall real estate appreciation will continue to rise over time.
Do you think that how will this affect the banks? Could this completely cut banks out of the deal? Or do you think they're still needed?
Nah, I think they're still there, right? Because leverage is leverage. So
what about with the population collapse? That's one of the things I think about. Population collapse.
You think the population's going to collapse?
And future home prices in 50 years
are going to collapse as well? Maybe.
I mean, I'm 39.
Probably.
No kids.
Yeah.
And
you hate children.
No, I don't hate children. I think where I used to be shamed in society,
it's no big deal.
I don't feel like that shame.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see huge changes. I was watching an Elon Musk podcast, whether you love the guy or hate the guy, and he was talking about population collapse in his mind as one of the great threats to society.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible, but I think it's going to be a long time before we hit population collapse. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, if our population collapses, then real estate will probably be one of the least of our problems.
Okay. I'm just waiting for population to collapse so I can just move into a free home. Done and done.
Yeah. And then we're just waiting for the AI-driven robots to create food and feed us.
Not bad.
Will we plug into our metaverse?
You know, one of my favorite things, one of the best times of my life was when COVID happened. I know there was a lot of crap that happened, but I'm like, I don't know what to do from a work perspective. And I went hiking 2-ish times a week.
Yeah.
And I'd go on these nice 4-hour hikes.
Yep.
I'd find trails that had access to cell phone signals in case someone needed to get a hold of me.
Yep.
And it was a very enjoyable time.
Yep.
And if robots can do all the gardening and farming and cleaning, and that's what my life ends up being.
Yeah, I think that's wishful thinking. I think the reality is that robots will handle a lot of stuff that you used to do, and then hopefully they don't kill us all.
We'll have to do something else.
But you're going to be busy doing lots of other things.
Probably.
Right? Because this is what everybody said. It was like, oh, hey, now we have light bulbs, right? Mm-hmm. Or now we have the cotton gin. Now we have like these things. Now we only have to work, a little bit less. But what happened? Now we work more. It's like self-driving cars. People are like, oh, it's going to be so great. Self-driving cars, you'll be able to like sit back, watch a movie, relax. You know what's going to happen?
You're going to do your work while
you're going to do your work while you're driving.
Hey,
your boss is going to be like, yeah, I'm going to squeeze another 2 hours out of you, right?
I'm ready for that trade.
That's because you're a heartless boss trying to squeeze out as much productivity as possible.
I am not a heartless boss. But anyways, I take that a little too personal. So let's wrap up this podcast before we start fighting.
John is a great boss. I'm just teasing.
Go to venturecapital.fm and you can subscribe, follow us there, and we'd love to hear from you. So also send us a message on Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube.
Thanks for joining.
All right, thanks guys.